Our speaker tonight is our longtime club member, Lawrence Michael Kaas, who we know better known as Miner Mike. And Mike last spoke to us at our fall picnic informally about slag, but it was really interesting. And even before that, back in 2020, he spoke to the group about the Silver Hill Mine in North Carolina. Um, Mike's love for minerals started as a kid when he was exploring pegmatites in Maine. He's a retired mining engineer who worked for 20 years with the U.S. Bureau of Mines. Um, he also worked at IBM and with several mining companies. He received his BS in mining engineering from Penn State, go Nittany Lions, and his MS in mineral engineering from the University of Minnesota, the Golden Gophers. He was an early innovator in developing computer applications for the mining industry. He is the past director of the Society for Mining, Metallurgy, and Exploration, SME, and the past chairman of the DC section. He's also volunteered with the Smithsonian Natural History Museum for more than 20 years. And most notably, he's a longtime mining history buff and member of the Mining History Association. So besides the previous talk to us on the history of the Silver Hill Mine, tonight he will be sharing with us some of his historical research about the Friedensville mining district of Pennsylvania and the birth of the U.S. zinc industry. So help me welcome our own Miner Mike.
As Laura said, I talked with you guys 2020 or 2021 about Silver Hill, and there's a connection between Friedensville and Silver Hill, and I'll talk about that. For those of you that expected to hear about New Jersey, as was on John's email, I'm going to disappoint you because I'm not going to say much about New Jersey, but I am going to say some things about the New Jersey Zinc Company. So I'm just going to blast ahead. I have quite a few slides here, so if any of you need to leave, just go ahead and do it. I won't be offended at all. And I want to say special thanks to Mark Connor, who lives near the Friedensville Mining District outside of Bethlehem and has been a colleague for many, many years. We got kind of connected through Johnny Johnson, I think. And so there's a lot of common ground here between some of us because we've all been interested in mining history. So let's move right ahead here. For those of you that never heard of Friedensville, it's 4.5 miles below Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and quite a difference from the zinc mines up in North Jersey, where as of 2021, there were hundreds of mineral species from Franklin and Sterling Hill. Only 21 that Mindat had for Friedensville, and it's not really a good collecting place even today because they basically processed almost all the stuff they mined. But and I've been poking around there since probably for the last probably 22 years or so, and I haven't really found much to collect. However, as a student at Penn State, I worked at a modern New Jersey zinc mine in Friedensville, and even though was not much there of crystalline minerals, it was a very, very interesting place, and I'll show you some pictures of that as we go along. So let's move right along here. This is an 1847 map, and this is the little town of Friedensville down here at the bottom of the screen. It's a tiny little place. It has some wonderful looking buildings in it, but back in the 1840s, there was a farmer that owned this land over in this area. He had trouble growing anything. It was pretty infertile. And so for some reason, they decided they'd put some shafts down. I think they used the term shaft loosely because I'm sure they were just digging down like you were digging a well or something. And uh, and they started finding mineralization. In this area here is going to be an area that we're gonna be talking about today. Um, two main players here initially in the early days of Friedensville. One was a guy named Samuel Wetherill. Samuel Wetherill built the first zinc processing plant in Bethlehem, and he was producing zinc oxide. And but he was kind of a gadfly and had worked for New Jersey Zinc, the original New Jersey Zinc Company, up in Newark, and one of the folks involved with the mining area came and offered New Jersey Zinc an option to mine there, and they turned him down. So Wetherill decided he would take up that option, and he went up there and he built the first plant. Now, an interesting kind of little hiccup in this was that in those days in Pennsylvania, the law was such that you couldn't own the whole production and marketing chain. So the mines had separate ownership by a bunch of Quaker investors, and being smart cookies, they when they got a little disenchanted with Wetherill, they got the law changed so that it was possible to have the entire production and marketing law changed, and it was possible to own the whole path from production through products. And so they sent Joseph Wharton of the famous Wharton Business School up there as a young man. You can see kind of this is a pretty contemporary picture of him, a young man, to do basically a hostile takeover of Wetherill's operation, and and he did that. And we'll see the results of that in a moment here. Now, I want to show you what was happening there around the 1860 period. Here was, I'm going to draw a circle. I hope you can see what this cursor is going. Everything on the left-hand side of my screen, this was Wetherill's original plant. And so he had a roasting furnace which would take the zinc ore. It would fume the zinc off. As it cooled, it would be collecting zinc oxide powder in these gigantic bag houses, muslin bags. And this is called the Wetherill process. And it's been used for a long time in the zinc industry. When Wharton came there and took over the whole thing, his interest was in producing zinc metal, which the zinc people call spelter. And so he brought over. He was an excellent technical guy, but he brought over Belgian workers who knew how to process zinc. And he built zinc furnaces over here in this area, this L-shaped affair. And so all this site here is now a park, and it's just below the old Bethlehem steel plant in Bethlehem, PA, on the south side of the Lehigh River. So this is a very a very good processing location because it's only 4 miles from the mines. So here's the mining layout at Friedensville. We're going to talk mostly about the Ubroth mine, which is the largest of the mines, but they had 5 historic mines: the Ubroth, the Old Hartman mine, the Three-Cornered Lot mine, the Correll or the Saucon mine, and the new Hartman mine over here. And ownership of these mines changed quite a lot, but for the most part, the longest operators were the Pennsylvania and Lehigh Zinc Company, and that was the company that owned the smelter in Bethlehem. Now, this is kind of zooming into the Uberoth mine. I want to point out a couple of things. First of all, we're gonna be talking a little bit about the engine house. That's significant. The water problem was so severe at Friedensville that they ultimately built the largest stationary steam engine ever made, and that includes right up to this time. And it is located right here. And it had 22 boilers in a boiler house that were producing the steam that pumped the water out of the mine. Now, on this map, you can see they've got two main vein systems, but in reality, these are really bedding planes of vertical limestone formation, limestone and dolomite. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about these veins as we go along, but they're really just bedding planes. And as the old Cornish miners and they had not only Cornish miners, they had Irish miners, they had quite a few miners from that were born in Pennsylvania and came down from the anthracite region. And initially they had a surface mine here. And they got down to where they just couldn't control the water. They tried dozens of different pumping arrangements, but they finally the company went out and bought this, had one of their designers design and build this gigantic Cornish-based steam engine, and it was very effective. So we'll see a little bit more on that as we go. I want to show you a couple of some of the minerals that they found in when they were doing the open pit area. So this was kind of the oxidized area above the sulfides that were at depth. Mostly hemimorphite, smithsonite, a mineral called sauconite, which came from that Corel mine, which is on the lower part of that previous diagram. And then here's some other minerals. And you can see these are all coming from dealer sites online and Mindat because there are very few specimens that you can see today from Friedensville, and you can't find very many of them either. Um, but and you can see by the looks of some of these labels and things, these are really old specimens. And they tell me that the best collection was at the Philadelphia Academy of Sciences. And of course, they sold off their mineral collection a few years back. So that's where some of these dealer sites have gotten their minerals from. So this is sort of the old stuff in the oxidized zone above the sulfides in this mine. Now this is what it looked like in a heyday. This trotter vein or this bedding plane right along here. And these days the mine was about 225 feet deep. When they built the steam engine, it was housed in this gigantic Cornish style engine house. They had this kind of an inclined hoisting system that brought ore up from the bottom of the mine to this milling building. Here they used buttles in the mill. It was all pretty old technology. And over here you can just see the track of a rock hoist that they use for taking barren rock up to a rock dump. Little building here was the office and I think a blacksmith shop in the day. And over here, because this is really a launder that just took water that had came from another pump off to the left and transferred it to an adit that went into the hillside here and flowed right down into the local creek. So this was really quite an operation, and of course, none of the frame buildings are here today. The pit is filled with water up to about this level right here where my cursor is. And the only thing that really remains here is the stone masonry portion of the engine house. And we'll hear more about that. All this frame stuff is gone from all these places. So here's the great pump. They called it the President because when it was dedicated in 1872, the idea was it was going to be dedicated by President Grant, but he never made it up for the dedication ceremony. He apparently had a Civil War buddy down in Quakertown, Pennsylvania, about 20 miles south of here. And he was hobnobbing with him, and he never got to the pump dedication. But I just want to give you a sense of scope. We're going to see the walls of the engine house. This is about 6 or 8 feet wide. Um, this flywheel here is 30-foot diameter, and the thing that makes it the largest steam engine is this 110-inch diameter cylinder, and it worked to pump to push the rods up here to cause this beam to go down, and then it would pull the rods back down and cause these rods to go up. And so this pumping rod here is actually a bundle of 3 by 2, 1 foot across southern yellow pine, and it works just like an old farm pump. It's just this goes to a series of lift pumps, and I'll show you what the idea was. So this is basically a Cornish pump layout. Here it's a much smaller one, but you have this rocking beam on the top. You have this pump rod that goes down the shaft, and it has different lift pumps. Here is the one that, well, of course, the first stage is down here at the mine bottom, but the second stage is the one that just gets it up to the surface. That's exactly the way the uh, the Cornish beam engine worked at Friedensville, and it was successful. It didn't run for too many years, but until the mines closed in 1893. But it was designed to pump 17,000 gallons of water a minute, and it did it. So it was designed by an American engineer, but who was of Cornish extraction, and the parts most of the parts were made in Philadelphia at a foundry. So the mines closed at Friedensville around 1893, and mostly that was because of the soft market conditions. They just couldn't do it and make money at it. And the biggest cost in mining was the pumping cost. So New Jersey Zinc, around the turn of the century, bought a lot of different zinc mines all over the country. The idea was people think that they were trying to start a cartel on zinc, but they bought the Friedensville mines. I think it was about 1904 or so. And for a period, they did some test mining. And this is the only picture that I've found from that period, came from the Library of Congress. And things look a little flat here, but because they're going across a dip in the rather than going down dip in the mining strata. Uh, the best thing I've seen to explain the geology of this place is this block model, which was made by Bill Callahan, who was the chief geologist for New Jersey Zinc for quite a long time. And this is out of one of the AIME publications on ore deposits. And if you look over here and you follow this green line around, this is a sub-member of this limestone and dolomite, and this is an indicator for where ore is deposited. And originally, this was kind of like an anticlinal structure, as you can see right here on this side. So over on this side, where the Uberoth mine is, you can see the strata are going straight up, vertical. But on the top of the anticline, this side dips about 22 degrees. So all these mines over here are uh, are in this lower portion of the or this right-hand portion of the model, and the New Jersey Zinc Mine, which was reborn in the 1950s, continued to mine this what's called the New Hartman ore body right here, and we'll hear more about that as we go. This is actually a look at this Corel mine right here, and this is maybe the only picture of the Corel mine, and it was found at an obscure little museum down the Pennsylvania Dutch country, and the Landis family had had a mining engineering graduate from Lehigh, and he was also a very early photographer. And so he took a picture of down this 22-degree slope, and you can see it's a stope and pillar operation where they mined out parts of the ore and left stopes in the ground to hold the back up, essentially the top of the mine. So it's pretty interesting. And you can see steps here because the miners in this mine went down the ladders or the steps as rather than having a hoisting shaft for men. And incline was how they got the ore out at this particular mine. Um, just in brief, I'm going to just touch on a couple things. New Jersey Zinc, as I said, bought the properties there in around the turn of the century, but they didn't make a decision to mine at Friedensville until the 40s. And from the 40s to the early 50s, they were involved in sinking the mine shaft. Production was delayed until 1958 when the zinc price got up and continued until 1966 when Gulf and Western acquired New Jersey Zinc, and uh, and then after that, the production continued to 74. They deepened the shaft, and finally the mine got down to about 2,100 feet. And then in 1983, the Friedensville mine closed, and so did quite a few other zinc mines in the country because there were very depressed prices for zinc. In 1984, a Lehigh graduate named Stabler acquired all the New Jersey Zinc property, and it was about, I think, 750 acres. Well, it was 1,680 acres in those days. And one of his subsidiary companies, he was a civil engineering construction guy, and one of his subsidiary companies, Eastern Industries, uh, was located in the modern mine buildings. And when he passed, his widow donated the rest of his undeveloped property, which was 750 acres roughly, to Lehigh. So Lehigh owns everything there that Stabler didn't develop. And Stabler was a huge benefactor for Lehigh. You can see his name on buildings and sports facilities and all that kind of stuff. This is a cross section from New Jersey Zinc that they use to explain how they mined in a stope and pillar operation. The idea is you leave pillars of rock, which includes some ore, to hold the back or the roof up, the hanging wall, and they use diesel trucks underground. And so these mined out areas are called stopes, and and you can see the ore here is plunging about 22 degrees down, just like those previous pictures we saw of the Corel mine. In reality, these pillars are more vertical. But this is a picture from New Jersey Zinc, so I decided I'd use it. Um, and this is a mind map of New Jersey Zinc that shows the the youngest of the historic mines, the New Hartman mine, which was down here and done around in 1893, and then all these workings down in here was the New Jersey Zinc workings, which were started in the 50s. And the way the New Jersey Zinc got its diesel equipment in was they ran an adit or a tunnel down from one of the other mines, one called the Old Hartman, and it followed this incline down here and then connected up with an incline that went along the footwall of the ore body all the way to the bottom, all the way to about 1,000 foot deep. So this is a pretty substantial mining operation. Now, here's some pictures that show what the mine was like after New Jersey Zinc opened it in 1958. The head frame is there, and this is the only thing that's gone today. So this was the administrative offices over here. This was the miners' dry, where they changed their clothes from street clothes to mine working clothes. the ceilings in the stopes were up to 125 feet high. And so they had these cherry pickers, or the miners called them giraffes, um, which are very much like what you see with the power companies and Verizon and stuff. Except these guys are up here putting in roof bolts to keep loose rock from falling down on people. They had down this mine shaft here, they had three different sets of these pumping engines, pumping sets of pumps, not pumping engines. So there were three of these hollowed out chambers along the mine shaft, and they had a massive battery of pumps on each one of these levels. And then they used these rubber tired diesel equipment to take the ore, to load out the ore. And what they would do is in the mine, they would drive it over to where the mine shaft was on a level. They'd drop it down into a loading bin, and then it would be hoisted up to the surface and processed in this mill building back here where you can see a conveyor coming up. Later on, I'm going to show you some pictures that show some post-mining use of this building. So here's minerals from the modern mine. Okay, now I can tell you there really aren't mine dumps from the modern mine, and there's most of the stuff underground was massive mineralization, and this is kind of a typical piece. I'll show you another one in a minute, but the gray area here is a mixture of sphalerite and limestone. And unless you had a piece in your hand or were looking at it carefully, you would think that it was all limestone. But sphalerite, as they tell you in the mineral books, it has a vitreous luster, and that's exactly what you would see if you were holding a dry piece in your hand. It also has some pyrite in it, which was I don't believe recovered at Friedensville, even in the modern mine. And then we have, various odd places. There's still some hemimorphite or hemimorphite and sphalerite here. And occasionally you'd see grindakite on the surfaces of the ore. It's kind of porous here, so that means there's been some water reaction here. And this was also found in the old surface pits. Let's see what this one. This is a great picture. When I worked there as a student from Penn State in the summer of 1962, this guy was a shift boss, a hell of a nice guy. His name was Mayo Lanning, and this shows one of the water fissures that it just flowed right into the mine continuously, and and basically, the deeper they went, the more water they got. They had a cone of depression of water drying up farmers' wells from the across the entire valley, and they finally ended up putting separate regular commercial water systems that came piped in from Allentown to supply the farmers and the residential stuff out in the valley here. Interestingly enough, Mayo Lanning ended up being a teacher or a prof at a Moravian college in Bethlehem. But as we got doing this stuff, we came across a fellow named Bob Lanning, who was Mayo's son. And Bob was a kid who grew up in Friedensville. And unbeknownst to his dad, who would have been mad if he had known what was happening, Bob said he and his buddies explored all the old mines because they were all dry when New Jersey Zinc was pumping out the water. And Bob has been involved with us for several years in various parts of this history and preservation business. And so if you look at a Google Earth map, I just want to show you the lay of the land. The Ubroth mine is at the top. The old Hartman mine is over here. The three-cornered lot mine, the Correll mine, and the new Hartman mine. And then over here is where those mine office buildings were and the main hoisting shaft. And the red outline is the full outline of the New Jersey Zinc operations that went from the 50s to the 80s. And you can see this dual highway going through here, and it runs by a shopping center, which is developed by Stabler, and a corporate office park down here, which is also one of Stabler's uh, office developments before he donated the rest of the land to Lehigh. Here's a big tailings pond. This is practically all revegetated by Mother Nature, but that's where the tailings went from this mill building down where my cursor is, pumped it up here, and it you wouldn't as you drove by it unless you knew it was there, you wouldn't even see it because it's pretty well vegetated, particularly this time of year. Interestingly enough, the Penn State Lehigh Valley campus is right here, and it is not underlain by any mining workings, but the parking lot is. And they've had at least in the mine office parking lots down here, they have had a few sinkholes that were the uh, probably from the old collapse of pillars or something underground. There's been a lot of redevelopment of this site. This is a big Aldi food warehouse, and that in Penn State, and along this road here, there are a series of small businesses. So this is encroaching in this historic mining area. Now, let's just talk about production for a minute. Um, Overall, during the early period of time, so from 1853 to 1893, by all estimates, we think there was about 800,000 tons of ore produced, and the ore was hand-picked and sorted, and they only sent the high-grade stuff over the mountain to to the Bethlehem smelter. So during the, and you can contrast that with the modern mining period, where they produced about 14 million tons of ore, but the actual run of mine ore was about 5 to 6%. And back in 2018, when I calculated what the value of that was, it'd be about $3 billion. It's going to be a little more than that now because price of zinc is up a little bit. So it went from kind of old historic stuff to modern stuff here. I wanted to show this picture. I'm not going to talk about this story down here, but this upper picture is a picture of the Ubroth mine that was in Rocks and Minerals magazine in 1955, and it shows it totally dry. Right now, the water level is up about where my cursor is, and so we can't see any of this stuff here. But it was a pretty substantial hole in the ground. All the local kids swam in the pit once it was flooded, and and then there were a few other surprises like them finding a corpse down here. Very cute little town, Friedensville, very historic church, Lutheran church. Up the road a piece is the old original superintendent's house. This was a company housing subdivision that New Jersey Zinc built. And sadly, this building is been demolished for some of the real estate development near that Penn State campus. But this building was one of the other landowners in the area. It was a great house, but wasn't worth the cost of rehabbing it to keeping it going. Now, here's a couple other pictures. If you were across the flooded pit at Friedensville, you would look over, you'd see the engine house today. And in the days of mining, there were no trees here. They would have used all the trees for various things. And you can see where the water level is. It's up pretty high here. And this is the archway. It's about 100 and a little more than 110 inches in diameter. And that's so that they could move the 110-inch cylinder for the pumping engine in here. And these are two pictures of the old Hartman mine. It's also flooded, but in this peninsula here, you can see there's a lot of brecciated limestone and dolomite. And so this is sort of typical of the areas where there was some you know tectonic action on these beds over here. Um, when New Jersey Zinc started up their mine, they drained this pit as well. They drained all these mine pits, and they put this tunnel down in this portion of the mine to bring their diesel equipment in. I want to show you a little picture of the um, where am I here? I lost my cursor. There it is. Okay, here's a little quick video that shows a flyover of the engine house. There's the front door of it. This is where the pump's at on this platform. The flywheels, 30 foot in diameter, are down here. This is the backside where the pump rods were that went down into the mine. Amazing stonework by local stone masons. And this video is from a couple years ago. See some graffiti from the local kids that were for years used this as a swimming hole and a beer drinking site. Oops, let's go to the next one. Some more stuff about Friedensville. Online, you can find a wonderful video that was done by Guy Jansen, who is a kind of a modeler of interesting things in Belgium. And if you just go to YouTube, you will and if you Google or however you call it on YouTube, you'll be able to find this. And then Tony Mount is another guy, a modeler from down in Devon in the UK, and he built like an HO gauge scale model of the engine. I didn't say before, but the engine was scrapped about 1910. So this is about these two things are about the best thing we have for explaining how the engine operated. And this model is on display at the National Museum of Industrial History, which is in Bethlehem, on adjacent to and part of the old Bethlehem Steel Complex. And so what's next at Friedensville? The goal, of course, is that eventually someday we can preserve this place and somehow wire it into the UNESCO World Heritage Site, which in Cornwall and Devon has about 300 of these engine houses, many of which have been preserved because they have a part of a government lottery provides money for historic preservation. But Australia has quite a few of these engine houses, also well preserved. And the only one in the Americas, other than the Friedensville one, is this one that's partially still standing at the Real de Monte mine in Mexico. So the goal is to get this thing stabilized. You can see that some of these lintels are going, and we've had a couple of attempts at removing vegetation. There's some hope that maybe we can get some of this important damage corrected later this year. We've been running this fund for a while and trying to get enough money together to do that. Mark Connor has been leading the the effort to get several grants. And then, of course, if we can turn it into, if we can get it preserved and made a little safer than it is, the idea is to make it a mining heritage park. So inside the engine house, we might have a mock-up of just to show them how large the flywheels were. We'd have some interpretive signs around in the parking lot area. This is a framework of one of the miners' houses that the cellar pit is still around, but you can't see the mine houses anymore. And then there'd be various overlooks. And so that's the long-term view. Um, and we hope that it will someday materialize. I hope in my lifetime. And so this is the Lehigh President Pump Preservation Fund to get this thing restored and not to be looking like a wild jungle like it was. Actually, the place has been a little bit cleaned up already, and I'll show you what it looks like today in a sec. Okay, a few more minerals. You know, about every couple of years I go back and I troll the internet and see which dealers have got more Friedensville material, almost always from old museums. But I think this upper row is everything that is from the modern New Jersey zinc mine. This is a specimen that I have, and it's mostly solid sphalerite, but it's got some limestone areas in it. But it looks all gray, just like the limestone. And then this is a sauconite piece, and there's some aragonite. I think these would have come from the Corel mine, and another hemimorphite specimen, probably from, well, it could have been from almost any of the mines. And then just recently on Etsy, there was um, some really beautiful specimens from Friedensville that were sold by the um, widow of Noel Mobes, who was a geologist. Some of you might have known Noel because he was around a number of things in the East. And he had a great collection. He was at Friedensville for a number of years. And so these are all hemimorphites that he collected. And and of course, when they got sold for pretty good prices. So and you can see that they're pretty small and but nice, very nicely. This one down here is beautiful. I frankly never saw anything this nice when I worked there. But he was there every day for several years, and he was a geologist, so he knew what to look for. And then one other interesting thing that came up on Mindat a few months ago was one specimen here, probably from the old workings, because it's got all this oxidized limonite over here. But the smithsonite was fluorescent, and I don't know, Kenny or any of you guys that are fluorescent buffs have seen fluorescent smithsonite. I don't recall myself ever seeing it. But anyway, here's long wave light here, and this is under short wave light, and very beautiful. Uh, Unlike other famous New Jersey zinc mines, this is the only specimen I've ever seen that was fluorescent. Few more minerals. Now, I want you to focus on this one here because I'm going to show you something that's a recent find here that looks very similar to this. But these again are particularly old specimens. You can tell some of these specimen labels here. So these would have come from the historic mining. Um, and it's a good reason to support your local museum if they have a mineral collection because it was criminal, I think, to the way the Academy of Sciences sold off their mineral collection. I guess their curator thought, well, we've learned everything we can about minerals here, so let's just get rid of this thing. So now I want to bring you right up to date on what's been going on here. And Mark Connor, who lives in Bethlehem, not too far from Allentown, discovered that one of the original boilers, there were 22 of them, that operated the pump. This boiler was in the basement of this furniture factory, which was destined to be disassembled or just demolished so that they could build some other properties there. And and so, with the help of Lehigh people and some local engineering and construction people, they fished this thing out of the basement, and it's now in a museum storage area. And it's the only surviving boiler tank we know of the original 22. So hopefully, if we get a park going here, this can be displayed on the park, maybe in about the same position as the original boiler house. This was taken in earlier in 2025, but through the work of Mark Connor, who is standing here, uh, he nominated and got approved a Pennsylvania State historical marker for the engine house, which is back here. It's a parking area out front. It's not quite safe enough to allow people to go clamoring around it, but they do tours periodically, particularly through the museum. And I want you to look here at this. This is really creative. You can see right down here in the front of this little stand they have for the marker. It's 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 got windows and the big doorway just like the engine house. Pretty creative piece of metal work by the guy who designed the base. Now, coming into March of this year, the water level, because of the drought, had really dropped in the pit, and I mean it had dropped maybe 3 or 4 feet, and that enabled us to get into some of these rocks over here, and we've discovered some interesting things. First again, these are vertical bedding planes, and you can see that there are minerals in here, and one of the surfaces we noticed this pattern of minerals. I honestly haven't identified this mineral yet, but it looks very suspiciously like it might be hemimorphite, as we saw in a couple of those specimens. You can see a quarter here for scale. Um, the water, I was up there just last week, and the water levels crept up a little bit. Now we can't get into this area, but this is in March. And now, October of last year, we had been told that even though this administration building from New Jersey Zinc was totally emptied, um, we were told by a fellow who worked there that the engineers had built a mine model, and that the mine model was stored up here in this loft, all taken apart. This is what it looked like when we got there, and it was preserved largely because this fellow here, Rusty Taft, was who was worked there for Stabler. Uh, he and some of the Lehigh people gave us a hand by getting a lift and getting these pieces and parts down. So here we have uh, a gigantic pile of plexiglass cross sections of the mine model. And then in October, we made an effort to try to assemble this thing. However, there are no identifications that helped you assemble the right pieces and parts together. So we sort of halfway assembled one section and put two of the plastic sheets in just to sort of show how the model was sort of supposed to work. But these pieces form the model, which is 4 foot by 8 foot on the base, and it's got 1 foot modules that kind of slide in and out so that you can better see the geological diagrams here. And the colors here indicate ore grade, and the shapes indicate the footwall and the hanging wall of the ore body. So we had a lot more work. We knew we had a lot more work to do after we left on October 15th. And so just last week, we got a crew together of volunteers, and we started a more ambitious assembly process. And so here's Mark Connor again. Mark and I started photographing the plexiglass sheets, and Rusty Taft here and Harry Eustace here figured out the mystery of how all these pieces of the framework go together. So that's going to be a big help as we assemble and photograph the rest of the mine model. And just one more picture here to this. This is a zooming in section of the it will be actually this part of the module because it covers the oldest mines. And this is that engine house. It's the pumping shaft here, and these are the two veins that they were mining, or the two bedding planes that they were mining. And there's about 7 or 8 sections in this part of it. I'm working on trying to clean these up because we didn't have ideal conditions, because the storage area is the old machine shop of New Jersey Zinc. But we put this one section together. This was section F, so that's about 3 or 4 sections down here. And if you look at it, if we were looking at it from to get an idea about what the thing looks like assembly, you can see that this ore body is plunging down, um, Come on, where's my cursor now? You can see from the back to the front, it's plunging down at about a 22-degree angle. And they have New Jersey Zinc did a great job of working out the chemistry of the ore body and the structure of the ore body. They drilled a gazillion holes, diamond drill holes and other holes. And so we have a lot of data here. And on these sections of the ore body, as you can see, come on, I lost my cursor. Yeah, you can see along this drill hole here, there's where they analyze the ore. It has the ore grades, and the colors indicate the ore grades. They don't. It's all just limestone and dolomite otherwise. So this is real-time information, and that's the end of the story of Friedensville. But it's an ongoing story. And I talked to you guys about Silver Hill, and I'm working on Austinville in Virginia right now. And the person who ties all of these three places together is Richard Pascoe, the Cornish superintendent at the original Ubroth mine. And uh, and he's a typical cousin Jack Cornishman. The surname Pascoe is like Smith, Jones, or Brown over in Cornwall. But he's a very interesting guy who had a roving career, but he always came back to Friedensville, and uh, and we've sort of traced his whole family. My wife helped me put up a family tree on him, and we have found at least one bona fide set of relatives. It turns out we knew more about Richard than they did, so we they weren't much help to us, but. Anyway, that's the story. And in the process, we learned about the Bertha mines, which are right along the New River Trail down near Austinville. And mining history folks know that I gave a short talk on this a few weeks ago. But there's the New River Trail is a great resource for people who want some exercise and want to go explore the southwestern corner of Virginia and see some of the old mining operations. And I have to tell you that the Silver Hill presentation paper I originally wrote way back when, and the Friedensville paper way back when, and the Richard Pascoe paper are all available on mininghistoryassociation.org. And they also have a bunch of YouTube videos that are on whole variety of topics. So if you like thinking about old mines, and including some historic stuff, Bisbee and Butte and all this kind of stuff, go to mininghistoryassociation.org. That's a great resource. And of course, all this research takes a lot of volunteers, and I haven't updated this, but there's many more volunteers that have been helping us on this stuff. Uh, but the original research had a lot of people involved and a lot of help. You couldn't do it without them. And so that's the story. Thank you for hanging in with me.
Thank you, Mike. That was wonderful.
Okay, now I got to figure out how I get back out of this. Uh,
I can do that for you.
okay, Betty, thanks. That's the one part of your training program that I must have missed.
Fascinating presentation. I found a couple of YouTube videos on the pump house. As a childhood, I had a machinery and manufacturing background, so this is going to be some fun research in the next couple of days. Thanks for a tremendous presentation. I almost was going to be a geophysicist back in the 50s, and this is letting me look at what an alternate life might have been. Thanks.
Well, on the Mining History Association website, they have a meeting every year, and it's always in an old mining area. This year, it's going to be in the tri-state area down in Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma, and which I have learned is also significant for coal mining because the coal mines were there to provide coal to fire the smelters up that smelted the tri-state ore. Those mines, of course, have been closed forever, and And if you want to see really good minerals from the tri-state, you go to the Smithsonian Natural History Museum.
No doubt.
They're on on their website. We have every one of the field trips they ever took has photographic galleries that show what these places are like today. And so if you've never been to Bisbee and you want to see some stuff, you can go through the Copper Queen mine and you can go through you can go have a bird's eye view of the Utah copper mine at Kennecott out in Salt Lake, or you can go through the lots and lots of old historic mines. And just today we put up a fantastic link to a thing called The Story of Butte, and it is 27 field trips, virtual field trips around Butte, Montana,
Wow.
and including all the mining technology, all the labor history, all that kind of stuff. And well illustrated, has maps, and if you ever go to Butte, it all that stuff ties into your cell phone, and if you're driving around it, it'll just take you from place to place to place to place. And there's, of course, hundreds of historic places in Butte.
Very good. You asked earlier if I've ever seen fluorescent smithsonite, and I just so happen to have a piece
Hey, excellent.
that I got from Phil Pershawn, Dan's friend. I don't know if you can see it. It's glowing orange. But a funny thing about this piece is it was in George Loud's collection.
Oh, well.
Yeah. So one of your specimens, George. And this is another one that I have of smithsonite. You can't really see it. It's pretty dark in here. A little more light. Yeah, it doesn't even help. But it's from Friedensville, and it has a really old tag on it. A little tag right in the corner with a description of the mineral. So, and that was a Ron Sloto specimen. Came with a nice label of his, who was a speaker of ours in November, I believe, last year. So,
Right.
cool stuff. Really enjoyed the presentation, Mike.
Well, support your local mineral museums, particularly the small ones. They're having a rough time, and particularly if they've got mineral displays, they need all the support they can get.
Yep.
Mike, along that line, I'd like to make a point for the Mineral Museum in Kansas City.
Okay.
UMKC, you mentioned the tri-state area, Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma, lead and zinc and coal. There's an excellent museum in Kansas City at UMKC.
Huh. Did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. I've been to the Joplin, Missouri museum. In fact, we're going to have a reception at that museum end of May when we have the conference out there. And my recollection is that it has some pretty nice mineral specimens in it.
It's quite a nice area. I went through there in October last year. You can see Big Brutus, a stripping shovel made by
Right.
P&H that stripped the overburden to get down to the coal, and a lot of little museums, Carthage, Missouri, Joplin, and it's a great area to visit. It'll be good, really cool for you to be out there.
Yeah, I think we'll have a very good meeting there. We're expecting about 100 people to show up. So the Westerners, as Johnny Johnson and I know, the Westerners don't like to acknowledge that we have all this stuff east of the Rocky Mountains, but and particularly east of the Mississippi River. But we have terrific mining history and mineral history all throughout the country. And next year, the Mining History Association is going to go to Houghton again. We've been there before. So that'll be the Michigan Copper Country. I can never get enough of that place. You could spend weeks there. and they're still collecting up there.
No, that's fun. Any other any show and tell, anything else anybody has for the horde?
Just mentioned, Mike, you mentioned the Bisbee mine in Arizona, and that will be what our speaker in September will be focused on.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Yeah. The 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 tourist attraction in Bisbee is called the Queen Mine, and it's Bisbee is a hodgepodge of thousands of mining claims, and the actual Copper Queen Mine, which produced so many of the wonderful malachites and azurites and all kind of other stuff, is actually adjacent to the Queen Mine where the tourist visit goes, but it's 100% authentic, and you can walk into the old stopes and see where the minerals were literally carved out of the limestone.
My husband and I have been there, and it's a very wonderful tour that they can take you on, and just driving around and seeing the different head frames, and I mean Bisbee is a very, very interesting place.
Yeah, I got a very nice kind of personalized tour last time I was out for the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show. And we've been interested in how they portray the mining that went on, and they have a lot of sections of square set mining, which is where they use these timbers that form like little boxes, where the miners could work under cover and not get rocks falling on them. And they've put in several sections of the mine, so people get to see that, which is, to my knowledge, not shown in most mine museums that you have in the West, particularly. Yeah, and they have a good mineral museum there in Bisbee.
Yes,
a lot of the mineral specimens are actually on loan from the Smithsonian, and like the Smithsonian, a lot of the stuff the Smithsonian has came from the James Douglas collection, and James Douglas was kind of one of the founders of Phelps Dodge back in the day. Had a terrific collection.
All right, here's a copper. It's from the UP, but it's a copper skull.
Oh yeah, wonderful, wonderful.
I mean, this thing, you can like put your fist inside of it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful specimen.
That's great. I got this recently. I just couldn't turn it down.
Yep.
Grow like that.
Yeah, shiny things, you know.
Why is it hollow?
It's hollow because the copper, probably in like in solution, solidified around a cobble. So around, because these are found inside in conglomerates, which is just like all sorts and so these formed around other rocks and then dissolved out. I mean, you can see other spaces where other rocks have dissolved out.
Nice.
There's a nice one of these in the Smithsonian too.
Fall off.
Is that where you got it? You picked it up?
Yeah, no, yeah, I picked it up from the Smithsonian. I went in the case and opened it up.
They have one.
They do have one. They have a nice one.
Yeah, they have a great display of stuff from Bisbee, and great display on copper stuff, and a great display from James Douglas's collection back in the mine area on the mineral gallery. Yeah.
I don't want to have to go run for it. It's just a few rooms away, but I've got one that's about twice the size. Ha ha.
Who's got the biggest skull?
The biggest skull, exactly.
You're right.
The only problem with their skulls is they're all hollow.
Yeah.
There's nothing inside.
Well,
One of the other attractions up in the UP is it's called the Delaware Copper Mine, and it's way up in the top end of the Keweenaw, and it was famous for datolite specimens. And I've not collected there. I've been to the Delaware Mine a couple times, but the I actually went and bought in Calumet, bought a datolite that was pretty nice, and it came from the Delaware Mine. And I have to say, Delaware Mine is one of the parts of the Keweenaw where Richard Pascoe of Friedensville fame worked as he trundled around the country, being a traveling mining engineer, consultant, superintendent, whatever. He was up there for a year. Actually,
If I recall correctly, after one of our other conferences up there, you gave me some old prospectuses and maps of the Delaware because you knew we were headed up there to the Keweenaw. And we went up there, and after we did the underground tour, we were walking all around the surface, comparing those old prospectuses to the ruins and stuff. I think we knew some things about the property that the Delaware owners didn't know.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. There's a lot of ruins there that go back to the 1850s through the 1880s, and it's a very nice attraction for people to go, and you can just walk down into the Delaware mine through on a set of steps. It's filled with water at the very bottom.
While you're up there in the UP, go around Lake Superior and go look at some amethyst, pick up some amethyst in Ontario. They got some nice ones up there.
Funny, I'm like Googling and looking up these things as we're going along. So it's pretty awesome.
I guess as a news item from that part of the country, just last week the president signed into law
Oh yeah.
a termination of the Biden administration mining ban on the copper nickel deposits of the Duluth Gabbro, which is below the Mesabi Range iron formation. And as you know, we don't have very much nickel, and we don't have well, definitely don't have much nickel, but there's some cobalt, there's some platinum, and there's some copper and stuff there. So it's likely that that will start a new generation of mining between Lake Superior and where the Mesabi is. It's the mines, the deposits are all drilled out. The two companies are ready to go, and of course everybody's worried about the potential for pollution. But across the Lake Superior, in around Marquette, Michigan, they have a copper nickel deposit, and they're mining it with very stiff environmental controls, and they haven't caused any problems at all. So it's doable.
Yeah. It's a beautiful country up there.
Beautiful country, yeah.
Cool. All right. Anybody else, or shall we depart for the evening and resume in a month? All right. Mike, thank you again.
No problem.
Thank you,
It
Mike.
was great.